5 p.m. But maybe they'll help me get in the air. Here we go. Launching. Downwind super fast. That was close. Let's not do that again. We're back from the Maiden flight, and just wanted to provide a few comments on the build that I went through and some tweaks I'd recommend making before going out for a flight. For the center of gravity, the manual says 60 millimeters from the leading edge, which I found to line up with this dot that is molded into the foam. So I taped a piece of string there and used that as my guide. So I balanced it just slightly tail heavy, and the way I did that was I cut away the block of foam that was inside the battery tray right here, and you can kind of see this used to be placed in here like that. So I removed that piece of foam, which allows me to place the battery pack all the way against this vertical wall right here. With that, I got it to balance nicely at this 60 millimeter mark, and I didn't even have to trim it on the Maiden flight, so that worked out well. Underneath, during the build, I did have some trouble getting the ESC jammed all the way in there, and I can show you what I'm talking about there. So I'm going to put the camera down and remove the bottom cover here. The bottom cover is nicely removed with just 2 screws, so I like that it's really easy to access the ducted fan for service or to take some video footage of it. Okay, with that guy off, you can see how I've laid out the ducted fan and the wires. Hobby B actually didn't ship me a manual, so I had to look at photos and the manual that I found at Hobby King's webpage. I held this fan in with some double-sided adhesive. It's pressure-sensitive adhesive from 3M, which you can find at hardware stores or craft stores. I changed the stock motor's banana plugs from 2 or 2.5 millimeters to 3 millimeter, and that's just personal preference. That's what all of my ESCs use. So here you can see how the ESC slides in from the electronics bay, and it's actually nicely captured. I made it so that the heat sinks point down, but I had to cut away foam in this area to allow the ESC to slide forward enough, or back enough, so that I could actually make the connection to the motor's plugs. Without removing the foam, I couldn't get the wires to connect. There was a gap. I went with the 5-blade fan that comes with the model. I did order the 6-blade fan that's supposed to work with this guy, but I found that the shroud was too long on the center cylinder, and so the motor couldn't insert all the way into this hole to be flush with this surface to hold down the screws. So this would probably require some modification to work. And I even looked at seeing if the 6-blade rotor would fit inside of the stock EDF housing, and it does fit, but the hole in this rotor for the 6-blade doesn't have the same hole in it for the nut. You see that the stock rotor with 5 blades has the cutout for the nut, which allows it to spin on properly. So don't really know what they expected me to do with this to get it to work, but definitely is not a direct swap. With the 5-blade rotor, it flew pretty nicely, but you can probably see in the Maiden video flight that it wasn't really fast going upwind, but downwind it flew quite nicely. For the servos, I talked to some guys at the field, and they both recommended that I put the aileron linkage on the innermost horn for the servo and the elevator linkage to the outermost. I found at this setup I get the specified 10 millimeters of travel on the elevator, but I'm only getting about 5 millimeters of travel on the aileron, so I may switch that aileron horn to go to the second hole on the horn. Overall, good maiden flight. On landing, I caught this lip just a little bit, so you can see there's some crumpling of the foam there, but not too bad. The shape is still there. And then I ran a strip of clear tape along the bottom to protect the paint when I belly land on the grass, and then wrapped it just a little bit on inside of the inlet. So, happy with the model, and looking forward to some more flights.